In Italy, he was a hero.
One of these teams will become the first four-time World Cup champion.
But to the rest of the world, he became the villain. After that kick, he just stood there, frozen, staring into the void while the whole world watched. A moment of silence that seemed to last forever. But Roberto Baggio was so much more than that one mistake. His story is one of pain, beauty, and resilience. He almost gave up on football before it even began, and yet he carried an entire nation on his back. This isn't just the story of a missed penalty. It's the story of a man who touched glory and paid the cruelest price football can demand. When we think of Italian football history, one image comes to mind: a wall of defenders, impeccable, unbreakable. For decades, Italy was known for its defense, for its structure, its resistance. But in the heart of this empire of defenders, a different kind of boy was born. He didn't tackle, he didn't defend, he mesmerized. His name was Roberto Baggio. His story began in 1967 in the quiet town of Caldogno, tucked away in northern Italy's Vicenza province. Caldogno was one of those places where everyone knows each other, where football was played on dusty fields with torn-up balls and goals without nets. And that's where Baggio first fell in love with the game, at just 9 years old. And from the start, it was clear he wasn't like the others. By the age of 11, Baggio was already a local legend. People say he was involved in 65 goals in just 26 matches, scoring 6 in a single game. Everything came easy to him. He wasn't just good, he was special. He was a skinny kid with long hair and shy eyes. But when the game began, it was like time slowed down every time the ball touched his feet. That's how he caught the attention of Vicenza, a modest club competing in the lower leagues of Italian football. In 1980, at just 13 years old, Baggio left his hometown and joined their youth academy. He was the youngest, the quietest, but also the most gifted. By 15, he had earned a place in the senior squad, and in the gritty, unforgiving world of Serie A, where finesse often gets crushed by brute force, Baggio began to do the impossible. Short dribbles on heavy fields, goals through reckless tackles, surrounded by veterans who treated the ball like something to be kicked, not caressed. Then, on June 3, 1984, he scored his first professional goal. A penalty. Cold, precise, almost like destiny was whispering something. A small detail that would take on devastating weight years later. But for now, nothing could stop him. His name began to spread across Italy. Regional newspapers hailed him as a rare gem, and the big clubs in Serie A circled him like sharks. At 18, Baggio was named the best player in Serie C. His path seemed clear. He was finally getting his shot in the top flight with Fiorentina. But football, like life, rarely follows a perfect script. And just 2 days before signing that contract, his world collapsed. Everything was in place. Baggio was the most promising player in Italy's third division. His talent could no longer be ignored, and he was about to take the biggest step of his career. Fiorentina, one of the most historic clubs in Serie A, was ready to bring him in. The contract would be signed in just 2 days. It was the beginning of a dream, but football loves to test its chosen ones. In his final match for Vicenza, something happened. It was a simple play, nothing special. And then, a snap. Baggio hit the ground, and with him, everything he had built came crashing down. Torn ACL, shattered meniscus, his knee was destroyed. They told him he might never play again, that his career could be over before it even started. Everything he'd worked for, gone in an instant. But then came a gesture that changed everything. Fiorentina didn't walk away. Despite the medical reports, despite having no guarantees, the club chose to believe. They went ahead with the signing, paid for the surgery, funded his rehab, and gave him something more valuable than anything else: time. The city of Florence opened its arms to a broken boy, one who still carried a spark. Roberto Baggio became a symbol of hope and patience. During the entire 1985 season, he didn't play a single minute. Fans grew restless. Questions started to rise. But then, in September 1986, the moment finally arrived. His Serie A debut. All of Florence held its breath. It was the start of a new chapter. But fate wasn't done testing him. That same month, another injury. The same knee. This time, doctors needed 220 internal stitches to piece it back together. Another season, gone. The headlines began to shift. Excitement turned to skepticism. Was Baggio really a rising star, or just another broken promise? But he refused to quit. And in May 1987, nearly 2 years after the original injury, he returned. And he returned the way only legends do. Against Maradona's Napoli, the unstoppable leaders of the league. Fiorentina needed a miracle, and it came from Baggio's feet. A free kick, edge of the box, and a stunning equalizer against a giant. That 1 point saved Fiorentina from relegation. That day, Roberto Baggio didn't just return, he was reborn. And this was only the beginning. After years in the dark, finally, the light. Roberto Baggio was free. Free from pain, free from surgeries, free from doubt. For the first time since joining Fiorentina, he could just play. And when he did, Italy witnessed the birth of something rare. In the 1988-89 season, Baggio exploded. 15 goals in Serie A, the third highest scorer in the league. But more than the numbers, it was the impact. It was how he played, the elegance of his dribbles, the vision in his passing, the ice in his veins when finishing. He made everything look effortless. Miguel Montuori, a Fiorentina legend himself, said it clearly. Baggio is more productive than Maradona. And the chorus grew louder. That year, many called him the best number 10 in the country. Fiorentina finished 7th, enough to qualify for the UEFA Cup. And now, all of Europe would see the kid from Caldogno. In the following season, Baggio led Fiorentina all the way to the final. It was his first big international campaign, and fittingly, his first European goal came just like his first ever, from the penalty spot. But the title slipped away. Fiorentina lost the final to Juventus, and quietly, behind the scenes, the next act was already being written. Not long after, the announcement came. Juventus had paid a world record £8 million for Roberto Baggio, the highest transfer fee in football history. And Florence fell into chaos. The same fans who once called him divine now called him a traitor, because it wasn't just that he left, it was who he joined. Ever since the Scudetto scandal in 1982, when Juventus allegedly stole the title from Fiorentina with help from the referees, the rivalry between the two clubs had turned into an open wound. And now, their greatest idol had been taken by the enemy. Bricks flew in the streets of Florence, chains, shattered glass, screams, 50 people injured, 9 arrested. The club president had to lock himself inside the stadium, fearing for his life. And Baggio, he was forced to speak publicly. He said he didn't want to leave, that the club had pushed him out, but it was too late. The reunion was inevitable. Fiorentina versus Juventus. Baggio, now in black and white, back at the Artemio Franchi. The stadium erupted in boos, not of hatred, but of heartbreak. And then, fate twisted the knife, a penalty for Juventus. Baggio was the designated taker, but he refused, and everyone knew why. He couldn't bring himself to shoot against the club he still loved. He was subbed off moments later, but as he walked toward the bench, a Fiorentina scarf was thrown onto the pitch. He bent down, picked it up, and held it, gently, as if he were holding a piece of home. In that moment, he won Florence back, but he enraged Turin. At the very next Juventus training session, 300 fans showed up, demanding answers, demanding loyalty. To them, Baggio was still on the fence, still caught between two worlds. But that wouldn't last forever, because time would prove Roberto Baggio didn't need to be loved. He needed to be remembered, and soon he would become impossible to forget. He had won back Florence with a single gesture and enraged an entire city with just a look. To Juventus fans, Roberto Baggio was still an outsider, still their player. He hadn't bled black and white yet, and for a while that shadow followed him. He was booed, questioned, kept at a distance, but there was one thing no one could silence: his talent. And Baggio responded the only way he knew how, with the ball at his feet. Game after game, goal after goal, touch after touch. He turned doubt into belief. Between 1990 and 1993, Roberto Baggio became Juventus. He was the playmaker, the magician. And when the team stumbled, he was the one who lifted them. But it was the 1992-93 season that made the world take a bow. 39 goals, a UEFA Cup title, sealed with 2 goals and an assist in the final, and more. Ballon d'Or, FIFA World Player of the Year. Roberto Baggio, the boy from Caldogno, Florence's rejected son, had become the king of Turin, and more than that, he was the best player on the planet. But there was one jersey heavier than all the rest, the blue one. With the Italian national team, Baggio wasn't just a star, he was a symbol, a source of hope in a divided nation. At the 1990 World Cup, held on home soil, he started on the bench, but it didn't take long to prove he was different. Against Czechoslovakia, he scored one of the most beautiful goals in World Cup history, a goal FIFA would later rank the 7th greatest ever scored in the tournament. Even without a guaranteed starting spot, he made his mark, and more than just goals. He left behind gestures. In the third-place match, he stepped aside to let his teammate Schillaci take a penalty, a gesture that helped Schillaci win the Golden Boot. He didn't say a word. He didn't need to, because that's who Baggio was. A leader without shouting, a genius who didn't need a crown. By the end of that cycle, there was no debate. Italy had their number 10, a genius, a savior. And the next World Cup was approaching fast, but this time, it wouldn't be at home. It would be in the United States, under the scorching California sun, with an aging, unstable squad and an entire nation watching just one man, Roberto Baggio, the Divine Ponytail, as he was now known for his iconic hairstyle. The pressure was his, the weight was his, and so was the hope. But what he was about to face in 1994 wasn't just a World Cup, it was a trial, and the entire world was about to watch. The 1994 World Cup didn't feel like a stage for heroes. Scorching heat, uneven pitches, soulless stadiums, and an aging, unstable Italian squad filled with more questions than answers. But still, there was hope, because Italy had Roberto Baggio, the best player in the world. He carried the weight of a nation and the dreams of an entire generation. But the beginning was anything but promising. 3 group stage matches, just 1 win. Italy scraped through as one of the best third-place teams, weak in attack, shaky in defense, and Baggio, disconnected, slow, unfocused. But there was a reason: injuries, constant muscle pain, and the unbearable pressure of an entire country waiting for a miracle. Then came the round of 16, Italy versus Nigeria. Italy was down 1-0. Gianfranco Zola had just been sent off, and then Baggio appeared. A turn, a low strike, 1-1. In extra time, he stepped up again. A penalty, calm, precise. Italy survived. In the quarter-final against Spain, the script repeated itself. Another miracle, another win. In the semi-final against Bulgaria, he didn't wait for the drama. 2 goals in the first 25 minutes. Even injured, he dominated. 3 games, 5 goals. Baggio had arrived, and after 12 long years, Italy was back in a World Cup final. On one side, Romario. On the other, Baggio. But there was a problem, a big one. Baggio was injured. He'd torn a muscle in the semi-final. He would play the final on painkillers. He could barely run. For 120 minutes, it wasn't a game of skill. It was survival. Few chances, endless tension, a scoreless draw. It would be decided by penalties. And now, it all came down to him, the best player in the world, the weight of a nation on his shoulders. Brazil were champions. And Baggio stood still. He didn't move for minutes. While the world celebrated, he crumbled inside. It was the heaviest silence in the history of football. That image, alone on the Californian grass, became the symbol of sorrow, the man who died standing. Few remembered how he carried Italy all the way there. Few mentioned the 2 missed penalties before his. And that moment followed him for the rest of his life. But what the world never understood was that one missed kick didn't erase his greatness. It immortalized it, because only those who dare to fail in front of millions are worthy of being remembered forever as legends.